Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Inside Comics. My name is George Michail, and I'm joined by Andrew Buckley. Andrew, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, George.
Absolutely, man. Today we're talking about using public domain characters. And you've done this a few times in your career, most recently in our brand new series, Fantasy Quest. Can you tell us a little bit about what Fantasy Quest is about?
Yeah, Fantasy Quest is a wonderful adventure story featuring worlds of Oz and Wonderland at war. And we have a mysterious stranger who enters the fray as somebody who is on a quest of his own. We ripped from public domain and twisted all these characters on the head. So we have, a version of Tweedledum and Tweedledee and the characters from Oz. We've got, Christopher Robin as, a survivalist lost in the forest. We've got a bloodthirsty Bambi who hates man. Like, we got some awesome, bits and pieces for this great story that we crafted together.
Yeah, it's a really cool adventure, and it's beautifully illustrated by Rags Morales and Haley Renee. Rags is, of course, known for his work on Action Comics with Grant Morrison, Hawkman, Identity Crisis, the big DC Comics event. So he's a legend. Haley Renee is incredible. So the book looks great, and it's available now on Kickstarter. So click the link in the description of this video and go check it out. But let's get into what is public domain. What does that mean? And what are some characters that anyone can use?
Public domain, well, everything that you create these days, anything that is IP is generally copyrighted, but copyright only lasts for a certain amount of years, and it's different by country. For example, like James Bond is now public domain in Canada, but not anywhere else. It's got like another 20 years, I think, in the US, and in the UK, I think it's going to be like forever. But lots of old characters, lots of classic literary characters, fairy tale characters. The reason Disney can happily, create, fairy tale movies forever and ever is because all those characters live in the public domain, which means anybody can adapt them into any work and change the characteristics, but still use their name.
Yeah, like copyright lasts for like 100 years ish. And so after 100 years, then those characters are free to be used by anybody,
whoever. Yeah. And I mean, some examples. I mean, there's King Kong is now public domain. So is Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Alice in Wonderland, like all the fairy tale characters, Cinderella, Snow White, a lot of them. Like I said, James Bond in certain countries, Peter Pan in certain countries, like all of those characters are now public domain. So anybody can do whatever they want. And most recently, Winnie the Pooh got entered into public domain just, I think, about 8 months ago.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, though, is even though a character might be in the public domain, there might be certain aspects of them that are copyrighted that you can't use. Like, for example, Frankenstein, the bolts in the neck, that was added by Universal Studios. And so they own that interpretation of him. Same thing with Dracula wearing an opera cape. So there's certain things that you can't do that... so you want to do some research before you just go into them, because you could end up getting yourself into trouble.
Yeah, the Peter Pan one is really confusing because you can use Peter Pan in North America, but if you go to the UK, you've got to get permission from like the Great Ormond Street Hospital, because J.M. Barrie left like his rights to that character in perpetuity to that hospital to keep funding it. So they own it in the UK, but nowhere else.
So why use characters that are in the public domain? Like, what's the benefit of doing that?
Familiarity, George. People like what's familiar. I mean, geez, everything in the movie theater these days is, a remake or a reboot. People like to see reinterpreted versions of things that they grew up with. It has a certain nostalgic value to it. And plus, it's not, I mean, a lot of these characters are amazing. Like Sherlock Holmes is a great character.
Yeah, well, and it can be difficult to sell just an original concept. And I know I have like multiple books, and when I'm selling something that uses public domain characters, it's always easier to just get somebody on board with it. Even if some of my other books have like awards, I'm like, hey, look, this thing won like best comic book. Yeah, you should check it out. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with something I already know about, And so it can be really, really difficult to get people on board trying something new. So if you can, get people hooked on your work, your writing, using something that's already established, that's a way to kind of build your audience for sure.
Yeah, use it as a gateway drug. I mean, you and I both done this. You've done it with monsters. I've done it with fairy tale characters. You get people hooked on that first little taste, and then hopefully you can lead them into your other stuff that's more original, and they'll still love it because they love your style.
So when you're using characters in the public domain, though, like I always want to try and do something new with them. I don't want to just tell the same old story that's been told before. So what do you consider when you reinterpret these public domain characters?
You consider kind of the strengths of the characters. In the end, I mean, you definitely, like you say, you don't want to reinterpret exactly what's been done before, and you don't want to reinterpret any of the reinterpretation that's already been done before. So, I mean, I tend to make them always use a bit more darker. Like I do tend to put a bit of a dark spin, but I also play with fairy tales, and the original versions with fairy tales, and all the versions we've come to know are all the happy singy versions. And so I kind of like to kind of drag them back down to being, you know, a little bit darker. So in my novel Rumpelstiltskin is, you know, a murderer, and he escapes from a prison that he's being held in. And Mad Hatter is truly insane. Like he's more of a Joker character than he is anything else. So I just like to be able to twist them on their head a little bit more, and you know, give them a bit of a better motivation than what they might have had before, and to give them a stronger character arc. But yeah, I don't know. You just got to take it from a different perspective. What do you think? How do you do it when you do your monster stuff?
Well, you don't want to lose, like, at least I never really want to lose what makes the character them. You know what I mean? Like, I still kind of want them to feel like who they are. And so, like, I'll try and, like, I'll do my research and read the books that they're based off of, and then try and get a sense of their voice, so that even though I'm, like, doing something drastically different with them, it still feels like that character, you know, like
Right.
their speaking patterns, or even like certain like kind of phrases. I want to kind of keep that essence to them, but still flip it on its head, so that it because it's not just like some character and I've just like put like a stamp on them and been like, oh, this is Frankenstein, but it just to kind of have some of those kind of tropes that were in that story, but then like maybe have it like it could be like the opposite sort of thing too, you know.
Do you think we're frowned upon for doing this? I mean, I always hear complaints about like, oh god, there's never anything new. They're just recycling another character, and like, do you think there's like a pro and con side to this, the kind of methodology?
You know, like I create original characters all the time, and it like literally like I love this stuff. So for me, it's like kind of getting to do stuff that you love, but it's just easier to sell. Like at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
it's easier to sell, and you know, as much as I like creating original characters and telling all new stories, um, you know, there's a business aspect to it as well.
Yeah, it comes down to the readership or the viewership, right? I mean, in the end, everyone complains that, oh, everything's are recycled. It's that, but if it's not recycled, you don't buy it, people. It's your fault.
Yeah.
You're forcing us to do this.
Yeah, that's true. It's true, and I think we've done a good job of it with Fantasy Quest. I'm very proud of the book. I think it turned out great. I'm excited for people to have it in their hands and to just get more of what they love. And and we did really like one thing that we did, because we've written all 4 issues in the miniseries. That's completely written, and the first issue is 100% done. Like pencils, inks, colors, lettered. It's all done. So it's ready to rock. But we put a lot of time into like developing a character arc for our primary character. We're keeping a mystery. He's a mysterious stranger on a secret quest to save his homeworld. But who is he, and what does he want exactly? You got to buy the book to find out. But so even though we're using existing characters, we're still having them grow and change through our story in our way. And
Yeah,
I think
we
that
were
was
very
important.
careful. Yeah, we were careful to do that. I mean, we wanted it for every character we introduced to have their own character arc, to make sure that they had a good completion to who they are.
Yeah. So I think that's what's important about using public domain characters, is to make them your own.
Yeah, and we did.
All right. So that's going to do it for another episode of Inside Comics. Click the link in the description of this video and go and pick up Fantasy Quest. Thanks for being on the show, Andrew. And until next time, peace.